Hi friends, this is Sarah from Crafting and Relaxing. Today I'm bringing you a pretty long video. I didn't speed it up at all because I wanted you to see real time. What we're doing today is we're making embellishments out of paint, and I'll talk you through it, but I just wanted to show you some finished products so you have an idea of where we're going. I used packaging from cracker boxes and snacks, and I used deli paper and just a variety of things you might have around your house, Kleenex boxes, and during the video I'll show you what I used so you have an idea, and a bunch of random paint that you might also have. And this just gives you an idea of how things turned out, and then I'll show you how I made them. Many of you have commented about these because you've seen me use these in my videos, and my friend Andrea, Andy Mess, does paint pouring, and she at the end takes the cardboard and pushes it in there. Now what I'm doing is I'm testing which cardboards are thinner. The thinner cardboard I like better. It's easier to crank through the die cut machine in the end, and you can layer a lot of paint on it and still run it through. So some of these boxes are thicker, and if I had a whole bunch of thin Kleenex boxes or these Dixie cup boxes, I wouldn't use the thicker ones, but I kind of wanted to experiment. A Triscuit box worked fine, but if you have something thinner, that would be better. That cake mix box was too thick. I didn't like it. And this fake granola bar box thing, it's corrugated. See that? I didn't want anything corrugated because by the time you layer paint on there, it's just too thick. So this video is for Sharon, and what I wanted to think about was how you could get this effect with the least amount of mess, kind of the best return on your time. So I think the number one thing is work on a piece of paper or thin cardboard so that you're building two pieces that you can die cut later. Does that make sense? Don't waste the paint on your mat or on something you're going to have to throw away or clean off. Put the paint onto something that you can die cut later. So here I'm just using a grocery sack, and I'm cutting it just like if I was going to make wrapping paper and stamp it all out. This is how I would do it. I just opened it up. Then I looked around. You can stir this with anything. It could be your finger, but then you'd have to wash it, a spoon, a popsicle stick, a skewer, whatever you have sitting around. I was just digging. I grabbed some deli paper because we have that from gel printing, and I wanted to see how that worked. Grabbed a whole bunch of paints. I recommend you clean up your craft room first because you need a little bit of elbow room to work, and you need some space to set things out and dry them. You do not need a Dixie cup, but if you want to get small, like a more blended look, and I'll show you different ways, you'll see them, then you probably do want to put it in a cup and cut through it or stir it briefly. You don't want to stir it all the way because then you're just going to get a solid color pastel paint. And you definitely want to use way more paint than I am using. Andrea, when you watch this video and you're dying laughing, that's fine. Just put comments in below and tell us all how I should have done it. I used some solid paints. I used some extreme sheen. You could use whatever paint you have. It can be the quarter a bottle, $1 a bottle, whatever it is, as long as it's colors that you like. And I put it in the cup, and then I just kind of stirred, chopped. I've seen Andrea do this. And then I poured it out. Okay, good heavens. Like, if the paint's only $1 a bottle, don't be so cheap with it, right? Towards the end of this video, when I had even more paint on the paper bag, that's when I got the best results. So what I would decide is, how blended do you want your paint? How much contrast do you want? And then just put a bunch of paint on that paper bag, smush a bunch of stuff on it, and then go relax for the evening because it has to dry. Whatever you do, don't try and die cut it the same night. That I know for sure. I do a lot of things that are not wise. Here, this is RX bars from Costco. I don't know if other people eat these. I really liked this effect. It's just too bad I didn't have a bigger section of paint, because keep in mind, if you want a really big die, you're going to need a big section of paint. Okay? It depends on if you're making cards or what exactly you're doing. I cut out parts when I was dinking around or looking for more paint or doing stuff, but it is real time. So everything that you see me doing, even if it's painfully slow, I didn't speed it up for you. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm kind of tired this week, you guys. Still recovering from staying up late at the beach. My craft room is a complete mess. And here I'm trying one with white. I have a tendency to like the ones that have more contrast, more streaks in them, more going on. So if you do pastels, dump some plum purple in there. If you have dark colors, put some white in. That's just me. Do this project in whatever colors you like. If you only like greens, only use green. Maybe add some black or some white for contrast if you want contrast, but whatever colors you want. Here I'm using the Kleenex box. I really like Kleenex boxes. And the funny thing was the bigger Kleenex box was more sturdy. I liked the smaller one. And they were the same brand. They were both like the store brand. This is okay, but one thing that I realized when my stuff dried was because the paint wasn't thick enough, it didn't have as much of a sheen as I would have liked. So don't be skimpy with the paint. It should be puddled and goopy. Does that make sense? Because depending on what kind of cardboard or tissue box or whatever you use, it's going to absorb more of it. And if you want your embellishment to look like it's coated in paint in the end, it needs to be coated in paint. I liked this one with the purple. This is a less blended look, less paint pour combined, and more just like that kind of 80s paint splatter look. I liked it. It's really fun. And if you miss a spot, kind of like I did, you can take your little stick and touch it up. Sometimes I just leave them. I've had some where I leave it completely and then at the end I would fix it with a gel pen. And I've had some where, depending on what you're using it in, like a junk journal look or something, you just leave it. A little bit of brown craft paper showing through is okay. But since I didn't know exactly what I was going to use these on, I added some paint right there and just spread it around. See, I never do this part. Andrea always does all this for me. And then she just leaves them in the shop and they dry and I come back and die cut them. And this part actually was pretty fun, you guys. I would do this again. I would clean up my workspace better. I would not pile so many bottles of paint on it. I would probably just get a few, but then I would goop a bunch of paint and go for it. The whole project, this video is a half an hour. I had about 45 minutes worth of footage, and that was probably from me having to go out to the shop and look for stuff too. This is just a piece of white cardstock that was sitting around. In the end, I honestly have no idea where this piece of cardstock is. I don't think it made it to the die cut segment, and if you saw my craft room, you would understand. If yours is cleaner, that won't be a problem for you. So here, okay, my plan was I was going to clean all this off and set this paper aside and start making a mess on a new one. But then I decided I wanted to keep this piece of paper because really it wasn't that interesting at this point. One thing you need to think about is if you're going to make cards with these or something where you're only using like 2-inch shapes, if you have a 3 or 4-inch section of light blue, you are not going to make cool embellishments. So that's something to think about depending on what you're going to do. If you're going to do a great big die for a journal cover, it's okay if your pattern is really big. But otherwise, you need tiny little grains and activity in your paint. That's why if you mix it up in the cup, it's really nice. Doing it on this paper like this, I'm getting bigger sections. See that? But you should see that when it's all done. We'll see it. It looks good. I like it. It just kind of depends on what you like. If you like them to look more fine and blended and smooth, put it in a cup and stir it up a little more. Whatever you do, don't be skimpy with the paint. Definitely. That was my takeaway is I should have, like right here, I should have had it so you couldn't see any brown and it was like not a 1/4 of an inch, but a nice thick goopy mess. If you think it's too much paint and it's too goopy, it's probably just right because some of those I pulled them off and they were so goopy I thought, oh no. Here I'm adding some grayish silver Andrea does that a lot in her paint pours. She puts in colors that I wouldn't necessarily think to add, and they turn out great. Just, be careful you're not making mud. A lot of contrast, a lot of interest. Okay, this one is an example. This was pretty goopy. I thought this was not going to turn out well, and there wasn't one of these that when it dried, it had too much paint on that. Look at that. You can see the texture and the goop from it. That's good. And then I touched it up a little. Nothing to lose. But see, I have pretty big sections of like gray or lavender. And so that's something to keep in mind. If you were going to do like small flower petal die cuts, then you need to be careful that you have a really small pattern if you want interest on the whole thing. It's just like anything else. Whatever you prefer, whatever your style. I was having a lot of fun. See, I like that. It's really good. Really messy and goopy. And then the second one was interesting, but not as thick, right? Because I'm thinning down the paint. So maybe I should have added more. But really neat little patterns and feathering in it. So totally style. Depends on what you want. The end was super goopy, so I kind of spread that out. I don't use the seams in the boxes, where it folds. So I probably should have just cut those ends off. But if you're doing junk journals or you want some kind of like contraption or flap and you want to build it into your junk journal that way, then maybe you'll keep those and you'll use them. There's no reason you couldn't put your die over that, because lots of times I cover up the majority of the pattern anyway. Here I'm just feathering those edges because I'm done. I'm done paint smushing. I've done all these different textures to show you, and I thought, oh, that's plenty. I mean, you didn't need to see a whole bunch. Okay, I think it's been a day or two and they're dry. I love the color contrast. That one, it turned out a little boring, didn't it? It soaked up so much of that paint. So that's something to think about. That white cardstock was a little bit, cardboard was a little treated. It didn't soak it. Look at that one. You can still see the texture. Okay, we had a barking delay, but we're back. You could see the texture on that one, and I really liked it. And this one was okay. It soaked it up. And then deli paper. So I've never tried it on deli paper. I've done gel printing with deli paper, but I hadn't done any die cutting that I could think of on jelly paper or deli paper at all. Then the actual paper bag, we have that too. Then I'm going to move all that stuff out of the way, and I'm going to grab the die cutting machine. And I use the Big Shot so that I usually like these embellishments to be my background layer. So I wanted to be able to use my larger dies and not worry about if they worked in the sidekick. Also, sometimes it's a little hard on your die cut machine to do this. You can see, I'm putting some muscle into it. So I didn't really want to make my sidekick do it. Here I'm just running that star through, and then I'll show you how it looks. And I'm going to show you all the samples, the die cutting that I did on them, and you can see. And they finish so nicely because they have that thick cardboard and then the paint on them. And I don't throw them away. See how that tip has a little bit of white on it? That's fine. Most of my patterns and other cards have white. Just a second. Wilson, quit. So I don't toss them out if they have a little bit of white or they show a little bit of the brown from the craft paper that I used. I just think it adds interest. But I do try and find a shape that stays within it. I probably would have done both stars if I wasn't doing this for you, but I wanted you to see the variety, and I don't have a stitched star. I really like using the stitched dies, and especially with paint, because they give it such nice texture. They're a little trickier. Sometimes they stick. If the paint's thick, that kind of thing, they stick in it, and you have to kind of jiggle it and get it out. This one, I probably should have run it back and forth twice because those RX bars are a little bit thick. The box, the bars are too. But that's something to think about is I'm usually a really lazy die cutter. I just shuffle it through once and call it good. But when you're doing paint and you're experimenting with thickness, maybe you should just make a habit of doing two, running it back and forth. So In this video, you'll see that I adapted to running it back and forth so that it would be a little easier. That one, you can see there's some extreme sheen paint in there probably. The extreme sheens are more affordable than, say, Color Shift, and have really, really nice shimmer. The paints that have shimmer, I like to use those quite a bit and get a little bit of gloss. You'll notice in the video, I only used paints that were in bottles. I didn't use anything in tubs. That's just because I don't want to mess with them. I find that I actually like the cheaper paints that come in squirtable bottles. The extreme or the Color Shift paints are super fun, but I kind of shy away from them. And the same with the Prima paints when I'm trying to get a project done. The other thing is, when I'm doing this for myself, I usually do one die at a time. Like here, I've put the heart and the circle on there. It's just because I want you to see how things turn out, and I don't want you to have to wait so long. It takes a little more muscle to do it that way. I'm mixing brands. Be sure that if you're die cutting and you're doing any kind of detailed cutting, you're not using dyes from different brands and trying to run them through like I'm doing. Actually, maybe I'm not mixing brands. Maybe this is all BB Craft right now. Look at that one. I love it. Absolutely love how that one turned out. And I like this heart too, and I liked it so much that I decided to do another little circle. Now the heart is stitched and it was curved and it was a little tricky to get out of there, but it came out nicely. I usually, even if I don't love the color, I just die cut them all at once. Like I'll go out to the shop after we go to clean something up, and I just die cut them all at once with whatever shapes I think I might use. These are shapes that I would use on just about anything, right? And then I have them sitting around in my unfinished objects or UFO, bins, or knowing me, on the counter or falling on the floor. But in my room, if stuff goes on the floor, Wilson licks it or eats it, so I'm pretty careful about that. Oh, and in case you were wondering, the old dog is doing much better. She's kind of stabilized. There's not really much after dinner wrestling going on or anything like that here. Did you see that circle? Super cute. Then I'm going to get into the more pastels and pink ones, and I thought a heart would be good for that. I'm going to change my mind. Sorry, it just happens. You just never know. What I was trying to decide was, I don't want to waste it, right? And if I use that big heart, then what am I going to use the other one for? And I couldn't find a rectangle that would fit on it. So then I just completely shifted gears. But remember, I'm always thinking about these as my background embellishment to build on. So I take one of these and then I use, bits of die cuts or a little bit of ribbon, or it could be tulle, it could be puffy stickers, because that's what I'm into right now. It could be any of that stuff. And I build an embellishment layer onto this. So that's why it's okay if there's a color in it that you hate, you could cover that up. Sometimes in the bottle you think, oh, these will be great together, and then when you come back later, not so much. You can cover it. But I liked this one so much that I wanted to get one that would use as much of it as I could. So I went with this rectangle die, which I think is Noni's. It's probably a Spellbinder's die. I don't really know what it goes with. But it has a stitched edge, so it's very cute. And it's actually a frame and a stitch. So the border, the exterior piece, and the centerpiece have the stitch on it. Look at that. So that's an example of one that has more blending in it. And then this one is just a big goopy mess. And again, I'm going to use that die. And then I'll show you a couple other things. On this one, I'm going to put a whole bunch of dies and just run it through. But I want to show you one little thing that I do too, because as you're making these, you probably don't want to throw things away, especially because they might be kind of hard to match. So see that cute little stitched border? That's something to think about in terms of if you have a die that has a stitch on the outside border too, hang on to that. Maybe just throw it in your little UFO basket, box, or bin. And if you don't use it, fine, there's no pressure. But you might want to use it for something. And here, I'm just fiddling. I just can't decide. Sometimes when you get your dies out and you have beautiful patterns like this, You're not necessarily laying them out like you would on solid cardstock for the most space, but you're thinking about, oh, I want to be sure and capture this, or I want this big pink streak right on the edge of my circle. It could be a million different things, so just go with it. Then I realized I hadn't used that flag die that Creative Gigi gave me, and I really wanted to get one of those out of this batch too, so I put that in there. And usually I don't tape things down because I just go with it, but because I was putting so many in there, I did tape it down. And I just use washi. I have the purple tape. It was hanging on the wall. I just didn't reach for it. I was thinking about this in terms of craft fairs or holidays, or the volume of embellishments that you could make for almost no money and customize them. There's a lot of potential here. And I've never really thought about that because I was just using Andrea's trash. But think about if you're doing craft fairs and you want a bunch of red and gold embellishments, get yourself some red paint, some gold paint, maybe throw in some white, do a whole bunch of this and then die cut them. Or if you need to do a swap and you want 20 really creative embellishments, you could make 20 circles. Or, let's see, craft fairs, teams, right? Maybe you wanted to have like some sort of party or graduation for a school or something like that. There's all sorts of potential. I just did it from like a color mixing art standpoint, but you could do it by a theme also. I love that one. Love how that turned out. So there's a lot of potential. I think it took me about 25 minutes to set everything up and put the paint all over. It would have been way quicker if the paint had been in the house because I had to go out to the shop. My craft room was clean and I hadn't skimped on the paint. I bet if you were in a big hurry, you could make a whole bunch of cereal boxes worth. Maybe cereal boxes are too thick. I love that one too. Really, really quick. So that's an idea to think about. But I think the number one trick is to get the paint thicker. Then if you wanted sheen at the end when you were all done, you could always put glossy Mod Podge on them, depending on what your style is. Like if you're a junk journal kind of person, you probably don't want them shiny. I like a little bit of shine because it adds interest with my cardstock and printed papers. Here I'm cutting out that stitched border. I do this with glitter papers, mirror papers, different things, just to have a tiny, tiny little straight piece like that. Sometimes when you're putting together your embellishments and you have a sticker in the center and you're layering, you want to put like little flag bits, 2 or 3 that point out the side. I could take this, cut it into pieces, and it would be adorable. And it matches. So that's one thing to keep in mind. I like to cut different things out of the same paint pattern if I can, so that maybe I can put some accessories together, or I could do cards with matching embellishments. Maybe I'm doing a gift pack for somebody. And here the tag is a little bit bigger than the space. The paper wasn't quite long enough, but I just decided that's okay. The tag can be a tiny bit shorter, and I wanted to capture that pink section right at the end of the tag. So that's why I chose it. Again, I didn't move the die all the way over to the edge like you would do if you were using a solid color paper and trying to save it as much as you can. I wanted the pink to be where I wanted it to be on the die. Just funny little weird quirks of mine. Maybe you're not like that. And then again, just be kind of gentle. The paint sticks a little bit to the dies sometimes. Super cute. I like that one. It has quite a bit of gray, but don't worry because you're going to layer some pink stuff over it and it's going to go at that end. And again, I'm just showing you that was all out of the Triscuit box so you can see what things work. This I'm going to die cut because I want you to see, even though it's boring, we did the work, it dried. It's not more boring than a piece of blue cardstock, right? So even though it's not my favorite embellishment or my favorite pattern in all of these, it's still definitely worth die cutting and setting aside. Even if it wasn't blue, still worth it. So just keep that in mind. But like I said, I usually just die cut these all at once. So in these, I didn't finish the pieces of paper or each piece of box because I just wanted to be able to show you the different textures. But I would just finish them all, recycle the extra bits, and then have them sitting around. And that's why sometimes in a video, you'll see me pushing things like this out of the way or just grabbing them and using them on a card. That one, I think I didn't go all the way to the end. That was just a die cutting oops. But I think there's just a lot of potential with this. And I was surprised too. You'll see the deli paper was really fun. The only thing about the deli paper is it wouldn't be as sturdy to build your platform on, but it might be fun to layer on top of. You could take a cardboard circle or a chipboard piece or something and layer that deli paper on top of it so that it will have the interest but also have some support. Or you could just glue it down on your card, however you want to do it. I wasn't sure if the deli paper would hold the stitching pattern nice, but I was happy with it. It did. But again, I should have put way more paint on that piece of paper. What was I thinking? Just too small of areas. If you try this at all, tag me on Instagram or email me the videos or the pictures at craftingandrelaxing@gmail.com. Or if you have a channel, I don't know, just make sure that you leave me a comment so I get to see it too. And if you use the deli paper, just be careful when you take it apart because it's like vellum. So it's a little bit more fragile. You have to kind of jiggle it out, especially with the stitch die, right? I was really trying a couple different new things at once here, but I like how it turned out. I was very happy with it. Try whatever there we go. Now you can see. Try whatever you like and experiment with it. And in your color palette, you're going to love this. I think it's pretty fun. You should, I would guess, have paint around your house that would work for this. If I didn't have any of those little tiny bottles of paint, I might go out in my garage or something and see if I had some house paint. I don't know. I'm kind of crazy like that. I like to try things or maybe ask your friends if they have a couple. I think this is like at most, this is $5, right? If you've never done this before and you don't have any paint, this could be like in the cost saving money ideas video that I do next time because you can make so many different things for so little money. Those paints, sometimes they go on sale for $3 or $4 for $1, and you can pick them up at garage sales or you could use your coupon. The problem with using your coupon at like Michael's or somewhere is I don't know if they come in kits, right? So if it's a single item and you have a 40% off, you're going to be in and out of there a lot. It just doesn't pan out. Here's another one where it's stitched and it's kind of stuck in there and you just have to be a little careful with it. It'll come out. Just take your time. Even the ones on the cardboard stick a little. If it's a true paint skin where there's no paper at all and it's just goopy, dried acrylic paint, it really sticks. I think maybe I should start spraying them with like Teflon or Pam or something. I don't know. I don't recommend that. I have a lot of ideas I don't necessarily recommend that you try based on the crayons and the glue gun situation. This one, I couldn't decide where I wanted to put it because so much of that was pretty. And again, I can cut more out next to it, but I was just trying to figure out how I wanted that one. This is a die that Creative Gigi gave me. It is so versatile and it's stitched and I just love it. I use it a ton. It's great to take some flowers and a sentiment and just build a card around in a heartbeat. The other thing I've done with these paint skins, I guess technically these aren't paint skins, they're like paint smushes, is a couple of these on a card front with a sentiment and you're done because there's so much interest and people spend quite a bit of time wondering how you did it, so it has that going for it. Non-paper crafters are fascinated by dyes, let me tell you. Dyes and paint. Look at that one. I love it. And so that one is just the paper bag. It's literally just the paper bag. So there's definitely something around your house that you can use for this project. dig through your recycle, save some trash. If you don't have anything else, you could use printer paper. I mean, you could use newspaper. Newspaper might get a little messy on your hands. So the teal one Andrea made, it has a lot more sheen and more paint on it, and then all the other ones I made, and you can see the differences. And I think that teal one might be extreme sheen paint. She can chime in and tell us later. But there you go. There's the variety from this video and different things you could make. Flower petals are gorgeous with this too. If you have a flower die, I'm sure you've seen that in some of my other videos. And then we're going to get up close, and I'm just going to let you take a look and see what you think. I like the stars, but I don't have stitched dies in the stars, like I said. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And my giveaway hasn't been claimed, so stay tuned this week because there may be a flash giveaway later this week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.